Back to the office, hybrid workplaces, remote working, these are all decisions that organizations are facing as they look at the future of work. So join us as we talk about how we navigate career development when it comes to the hybrid workplace. So tune in and join us for the CG Hour. Welcome everyone to the CG Hour. My name is Fanny Dunnigan and welcome to the show. This is the show where every month we come to you with thought leaders, trusted advisors, experts of their field to talk about the latest hot topics in the field of technology and business. And so thank you for joining us live. We are coming to you from LinkedIn Live as well as YouTube Live and a variety of platforms. So make sure you drop in the comments below and introduce yourself to the others in the comments. Let people know what you do, introduce yourself, where you're tuning in from, and take advantage of the fact that you can network in the comments as well and build up your network as well as your connections. So thank you for joining us. This week, this month, we are going to talk all about career development in the hybrid workplace. And we are joined by a variety of guests. And before we get to that, I'd like to share with you this research video that we've done around this topic. So let's roll it. Welcome everybody. For those that are just joining us, this is the CG Hour where we will be talking about career development in the hybrid workplace. Just want to give a quick shout out to people that are tuning in from across the state, across the country, across the globe. We have Ko from Plano, Texas. We have Ahana from Delhi, India, Stacy from Capel, and Sachin from Frisco. So all around the city and the globe, thank you for tuning in to the CG Hour. Again, we are talking about career development in the hybrid workplace. And I want to introduce you all to our expert panel this week. I'm going to start all the way here with Sarojit Kanungo. Welcome to the show, Sarojit.
Thank you, Fanny.
Yes.
Very excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Sarojit Kanungo. I'm the president of CG Infinity. Been with the company for almost 13 years. This February it's going to be. It's been a fun ride. I still feel like a kid in a candy shop. And having a blast. We've grown probably 30 times in revenue and maybe 16 times in employee strength. So feels like we're getting started here.
Awesome, awesome. And I want to add a few things from your bio as well. Sarojit is passionate about helping customers realize consistent value from their investments in technology, as well as growing employees to delight their customers. And he has also spearheaded multiple long-term business systems roadmap efforts. So glad you could join us, Sarojit.
Thank you, Fanny.
And then we have here Misty Jeffries from American Airlines. Misty is the Director of Team Member Services and Absence Management for American Airlines in Fort Worth, Texas, and has been with American for 26 years. Congrats.
Thank you.
And over the years, Misty has held a variety of positions, including Director of Integrated Health Management and Senior Manager of Workers' Comp and Disability. And in her current role, Misty has responsibility for human resource services, compensation, ADA, and time away from work programs, which support over 100,000 employees. So lots of experience there. We're looking forward to hearing your expertise.
Thank you for
Misty.
having me.
Absolutely. And last but not least, we have Andrew Jackson, President of Bravo Tech. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, Andrew is an entrepreneurial leader who has been managing and building technical and IT staffing companies for more than 30 years. And he is co-founder and president of Bravo Tech, a leading IT staffing firm based here in Texas, Dallas. And he also currently serves as president of the National Board of TechServe Alliance, which is an association of 350 technology staffing firms. He is an active member of the DFW SIM chapter as an at-large board director and was a past member of both the SIM Management Council and the SIM National Board. Full of credentials, Andrew. We're looking forward to hearing your recruiting experience.
Thank
you. So let's get straight to it. We are talking about career development in the hybrid workplace, and we want to kick off with kind of the perspectives that you all are seeing, both from your perspective as an employer, as well as from your employees' perspective. Sarojit, looking back over these last 2 years of the pandemic, going from remote work, hybrid, what's been the lessons you've learned from that experience?
Yeah, I think 3 years is a little short time to accumulate all the lessons learned, but there are clearly few takeaways that I can see that we have experienced. You know, the number one is that, you know, the sky did not fall, right? Everything was fine, but we thought March of 2020 that everything is going to fall, right?
Yeah.
It didn't. So that's the number one takeaway, is that every adversity has opportunity tied with it. So that's a really good one. The second lesson learned is that, you know, I think we have figured a way to be effective and productive and, in fact, thrive in this adversity. But we still are trying to figuring out, you know, how do we bring the creativity and grow our culture while being distributed, the workforce being distributed. So that part, we're still a work in progress.
Yeah, and for your organization, are you remote, in person, or hybrid?
You know, even pre-COVID, the nature of our business is such that we have 40% of our employee here in US and 60% in mostly New Delhi, India. And so we've always adopted a hybrid work culture in pre-COVID. But, you know, right now the best way to describe is work from anywhere.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
And for those of you in the audience, drop in the comments below whether you are remote, in person, hybrid. Let us know in the comments as we collaborate and share here. And then Misty, from American Airlines perspective, you've run the whole gamut, right? When everything shut down and even like travel was affected. What have been some of the lessons that you guys have learned from that perspective of remote versus hybrid versus in person?
Absolutely, Fanny. I mean, one of the things I think is a little bit unique about American is that with our over 100,000 employees, we do have 85% of our employees are actually frontline employees out in the airports, right? Running the operation day in and day out. So our leadership and support staff were the ones that were in office, right, when the pandemic hit 2.5 years ago. And so we did have to shift because I will say in the past we have not had a bias toward remote working, unlike yourself. So that was a big change for us. Also a little bit unique was the fact that we had just built a brand new campus facility, not only for our leadership and support teams, but also for our frontline team members to come to when they come to training or reoccurrence certification, those kind of things. And so the goal was always to have, one campus for all team members. And it just so happened that the pandemic hit right as we were rolling out that campus. So that was one of the things that we've had to adjust on a go-forward basis as far as, those facilities and how they're used. I will say that one of the other lessons learned that we have is that one plan does not fit all, right? So some of our teams are more on what I would call more of a hybrid type of work arrangement, where other folks are coming into the office 5 days a week. So it really varies by department. And I think what has worked well for us is we've given our managers the flexibility to be able to make some of those decisions and empower them to do what works best for their teams.
Got it. And Andrew, you get the very broad perspective dealing with a variety of employers. What have you kind of seen as the lessons that have come out over the last 2 years around this future of work?
Sure. Well, as you said, I get to address this from my own staff, my recruiters and account managers, as well as the companies that we serve. And I think the first lesson learned is remote is not an event. It is going forward. It's a way of doing business. I heard someone say one time, this remote thing is not a tsunami, it's climate change. And that's really it is we have to operate in this environment going forward. Other lessons learned for us are that some people want to work remote, some don't. Some people are good at working remote, and some people aren't. And assessing that is tough. So we have to change the way we manage our people. And then the last thing I'll say is that going forward, we just don't know what we don't know. And it's just one of those things that we're constantly changing. How many times do you want to meet virtually? How many times in person? What roles work from anywhere, as you said, Sarjeet? What roles don't? Which roles could be hybrid? So the way we are as BravoTech is, I like to say, we are a hybrid remote. So we have some people that are 100% remote, some people hybrid. And fortunately, we don't have, like American, where you have to have people come in. We don't have that. So we don't have anyone that is totally in office at this point.
Yeah, it really is depend. I guess the answer is it depends, right?
It does.
Sarjeet, from what you've heard from employees, right? What is working and what still needs adjustment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll try to be succinct because we could go in 5 different directions at least.
Yeah.
Maybe a year ago, there was a study that Microsoft did, a very exhaustive study, which brings out, and Fanny, you brought that up in the beginning, is that there seems to be a great divide between the employee, what they're expecting, versus what the employers are expecting. We all know that. Yeah, and in our little world at CG Infinity, we have close to 400 employees, and I will tell you that probably most of the employees, they are comfortable working from home. And as an employer, I think I'm comfortable them working from home. What I'm also noticing that probably 20 to 30% of our employee, they are pushing themselves to get out of the comfort zone and they're asking for, hey, what can we do? Some leadership opportunity, formal, informal, it doesn't matter. So, most of the employees are comfortable at working from home, but I clearly see 20-30% of the employees are trying to push themselves out of their comfort zone and try to do things that they feel like will be better fulfilling for their careers.
Got it. Yeah, and across the comments, we're seeing a whole variety of answers from remote as well as hybrid. And but Misty, from your perspective, and I guess it's the employee perspective is also different depending on department, right?
Right.
So maybe you can offer some perspectives of employees in the front line versus employees in the corporate side. What are the sentiments you're hearing?
Fanny, I think I would say that team members are, especially the leadership and management positions that work at corporate, definitely appreciate the flexibility that we've provided to our team members. As I said earlier, in the past we didn't really have a bias toward remote working, but I think some of our leaders have understood now exactly to some of the benefits of that, and that we do have to adapt with the changing culture and environment that we're in today. So we do hear positive feedback. It does bring some challenges from a management perspective, I think, as far as giving our leaders those resources in an effort to be able to manage remotely, because I think we would all agree that that's very different.
Yep.
Than managing a team in person. So I think just equipping our leaders with those resources is really important.
Yeah. We got an interesting comment in the comments here from Katie. Very true here. One of the things she's noticed as a remote employee is that she finds herself working more hours than if she were in the office, which is kind of true. I'm checking more my emails and things like that. Andrew, what are you seeing as the desires and wants of candidates as you kind of go out with a variety of roles and work environments? What is that sentiment from the candidate point of view?
Well, there's definitely a push towards having some component of the job remote. People just want that. They become accustomed to having some remote, a day or two a week. The other thing that we've noticed is that some jobs that could be total work from anywhere, as you mentioned, you'll have a broader reach of candidates because you think about it, those people don't have to be able to commute to work every day. Their commute is to their desk. So a work from anywhere arrangement would have a broader candidate pool. And then the other thing that I think about is when someone says, "Oh, we're going to have one day you have to come into the office." That doesn't mean that much. Well, yes, it does. It cuts off all the work from anywhere opportunity for those candidates. So as an employer looking for more staff, having those options, the remote option is real important. And the other thing that we've noticed, and this was from my staff, is that since we went to work from anywhere, I had one employee that was, their husband got transferred and they had to move to a different town. Before this, that employee would have quit, looked for another job in the other town, probably not told us until they'd found the other job and then they'd quit. The fact that they knew that our culture is that you can work from anywhere, they just let us know that they were going to move to, happened to be Iowa, and we said, great, we kept a good employee. So letting your employees know your policies and which jobs are work from anywhere or not is real important.
Got it. Have you seen as much like relocation kind of packages and relocation experiences nowadays, just because people can work anywhere?
Yeah, we've had people that have moved. I had one employee that bought a house in Utah, and just why not live where they want to live if we can work from home? Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So as you can see, there's a whole variety of perspectives from the employer point of view as well as the employees. And we're going to move on now to the next topic. But before we do that, we want to play this quick video for you of some of the events that have happened with CG Infinity over the last month.
control of, so I've learned to pause. And so I've heard people say, Jeff, you're pausing. It's like, yeah. Yeah, I'll get back to you.
All right. What did Java say to C? You've got no class. And by the way, I told that joke to like 7 people and like 2 of them got it.
Thank you for joining us. Those that are just tuning in, you are watching the CG Hour. We're talking all about career development in the hybrid workplace. I want to give a shout out to Hope in the audience. She has a really great comment about knowing the policies definitely helps employees how and where to work. For sure, the more clarity we have, the more we can have that transparency with the employees. So let's move on now to the impacts of hiring and impacts on hiring now that we are pretty much in a hybrid kind of workplace. And I want to start off with chatting with you, Andrew. I read a great piece by you about some of the challenges around hiring, and some of the things that you highlighted or that you've seen for employers are things like increased failed background checks, as well as candidate identity fraud, as well as job double dipping. Is that some of the things that you've seen kind of prevalent in the hiring space right now, and what are your thoughts around that?
So we're in the IT hiring space, right?
Yeah.
And so that article that I wrote, the part about failed background checks was just the fact that there's such a low unemployment right now within the IT community. It's, if perfect unemployment is 4%, we're at 2.78 or so in the IT. So there are people entering the IT workforce that might not have in the past. So it has more to do with that than the hybrid remote. Yeah, the supply and demand, yes. The thing that concerns me is the double dipping. When someone is not in an office, there's the opportunity for them to be swayed by having the income of a second opportunity. And my advice to employers is to work with your staff and work on outputs. And so that I don't like there's software out there called Bossware that keeps track of keystrokes and things like that. I'm not a fan of that, Bossware. But the idea of having clear expectations and deliverables, and it takes a different kind of management to manage people in a remote workforce. It does. But it can be done, and I think that people are learning, and maybe some people that were lured away by a second job are learning that it's not going to work out for them well.
Got it. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's policies, right, around especially employees not being able to work for a competitor or things like that. So it can get into some sticky situations.
I would caution
right?
against double dipping.
Yes, yes, absolutely. From your point of view, Sarojit, what are some of the things that you're putting in place when it comes to hiring, or things that have changed when it comes to hiring?
Well, a lot of things actually has changed. In short, our horizon for hiring has expanded. Like in March of 2020, maybe we have employees predominantly in Texas, maybe 1 or 2 other states, maybe 1 person in Florida and 1 person in New Mexico. Today when I look at our payroll, we have employees in over 10 states.
Wow.
So does that mean that we actually made an effort to go and hire in other states? No, but what happened is that, some of the employees or some of people in our network who live out of Texas, they reached out to us, they may gravitate towards our culture, and we embrace them. And the second evolution is, you have this small group of employees in places like Little Rock and Albuquerque. They wanted to attract other people, and so we actually built offices around them. So we have offices now in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have great, excited group of leaders there. They're building teams there. So very interesting.
The talent pool has expanded.
Yeah,
right?
and it's mostly a pull effect rather than push effect.
Yeah.
So.
love to hear from the audience as well. Share your experience. If you changed jobs or got a new job or transitioned during this pandemic, what are some of the things that you've learned and would like to share with the audience in the comments? Now, Misty, from your perspective, obviously, frontline staff are still on site, but have you seen any differences with all the different work options for your corporate staff?
We have, like I mentioned earlier, I think we've given our employees more flexibility to do more of a hybrid. I wouldn't say that we've gone to the extent that Andrew has and been fully remote, because we do have a very expansive campus that we do like for our team members to take advantage of, and we think that the collaboration that they bring together to that campus is really important. One of the unique things I think that we have offered is with that campus is a lot of outdoor workspaces, and we encourage our team members, even though they may be on the campus, but to work in different locations around the campus and to experience and to actually meet other team members that they may not have done so in the past. So
from different departments
exactly.
and all that, right?
Yeah.
Do you still predominantly hire within the Dallas-Fort Worth area where the campus is?
For the most part, I would say. Yeah.
Got it. Now, also with Misty, you're in human resources. Has any of your HR policies had to change post-pandemic?
They have. One of the ones that really sticks out is early on, given that our team members were considered essential workers, right, during the pandemic, we did roll out a pandemic leave policy that we offered to all of our team members. We felt it was really important, obviously, to take care of our team during that time, and wanted them to have the flexibility to take that time off if they needed it or, felt ill and couldn't come to work. So that was one of the things that we rolled out very early on in the pandemic to take care of our team members. We have since rolled that back, just given the place where we are today in the environment. So.
Could I?
Please.
Something you said reminded me of something. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a full-in office, and I was one of those. Everyone has to be in the office every day. I was on the dark side of this.
Old
equation.
school.
Yeah. I was. Yeah, exactly. And then pandemic came. When the pandemic came, we went full remote, and we were fortunate. You mentioned your headquarters. Our headquarters here in Dallas, we had the 10th floor of a building, and our lease ended, and so we didn't have an office at all for a while. It was great savings on rent, but there were a certain percentage of our employees that they weren't good at it or didn't want to do it, wanted to come into an office. And so then we signed a lease so that people do have an option. And I think people need that option of some place to go. And so, like I said, working remote is not for everyone.
One of the stories in the comments from Ahana is, for them, working from home was fun initially, but I feel that the environment, growth, and interaction that work from office provides has its own advantages, for sure. But Andrew, I'd love to hear from you also, because you have that spectrum of a variety of employers that go through your hiring services. What do you see different HR policies and benefits coming out of the last 2 years that have changed around hiring?
Yes, the pendulum is swift. It swings. Everybody went remote. Some people went all remote, and they're coming back. Some people are saying everyone back in the office, just without regard to what the role is. And their people aren't coming back. Some people aren't coming back because they want a remote or partially remote position. So my advice is to have a policy that looks at each role and says, okay, what are the parameters of this role? Can it be done 100% remote? And then make sure that you've got the policies so that you can manage those people and also maintain your culture, which is a big issue. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later on. But that's what we did. And so we have, the recruiters that work for us, all they need is a phone. And so they can do that. If you customer service reps, there's certain, certain roles that they can do that with the phone. To certain roles, we're all IT, right? But like desk side support, where you're going to have to touch the equipment, that cannot be a remote role. But maybe one day a week they could do paperwork, and so some people would like that one day. So it depends on the role.
Got it. And I love that perspective. Rather than having a blanket one HR policy for all, you look at the role and then the specifics around that.
Could I add one more thing to that?
Please.
So you think about making policy and you think about diversity of thought. And one of the things that I would like to promote is that when you're making policies, is have someone in the room that is an advocate of the remote option. Because if you don't, they've got to be represented or it won't enter into your management process. So that's a suggestion I have.
Got it. Thank you. So anything you'd like to add, Sarjeet? Has your HR policies and benefits changed?
Well, not really. The way I think about the whole situation is driven by HBR came up with, Harvard Business Review came up with a framework early last year, beginning of 2021, which talks about 5 C's of challenges that a remote work poses. And I've become a big fan of that. And those 5 are communication, coordination, connection, creativity, and culture. I think the first 3 are more mechanics. We could put mechanics to tackle those. And we've done a good job. I think employer at large have done a great job of that. Even banks are functioning, regional banks are functioning remotely. So I think where I think we can elevate a lot of work in progress items are around how do we promote creativity and culture growth. I think that's where my mind is. I think there are a lot of employers I talk to, the CEOs, that's where their minds are.
100%, yeah. And that leads in very well to the next segment that we're going to have. But before I do that, I do want to call out this question from Bopi, the CEO of Cyber Group and CG Infinity. Great question here, and I thought I'd direct that to Misty, and let me know if you can or cannot answer this. He asked, what impact does hybrid work have on things like workman's comp and kind of liability insurance policies? Has that kind of changed? Have you seen?
It hasn't really changed so much, but it is something that definitely needs to be considered, right? I mean, with respect to workers' comp, that does fall within my span of care, and that is something that varies by state. Right, so it really depends on what state you're in and what the laws are. So I would just encourage the audience to make sure that you reach out to your agent or your broker to make sure that those are well covered from an employer perspective, and just make sure that the leaders internally as well understand kind of what some of the pitfalls may be there.
And actually, out of my own curiosity, is it a matter of the state that the employee works in versus the state that the headquarters are?
It's typically where they live.
Got it.
Yeah, it's what it usually is in most states.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so as we wrap up this segment here, I want to roll this video for you all. Just something to kind of bring a smile to your face. Some of the holiday and Diwali celebrations that have been happening over the last month. Don't you just love the celebration of diversity there? So as we move on and look towards the future now, right? We want to look towards what initiatives and what tactics or next steps that we can look at when it comes to developing staff and employees and career development and growth. So looking forward towards the future, I'm going to go through and kind of do round robin, do real quick here, just around different topics and some of the initiatives that you've seen work or not work in your organizations or your clients as well. So something that has worked or not worked, Sarjeet, when it comes to maintaining effective communications in hybrid workplaces.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think it has worked. The fact that through the pandemic in last 30 months or so, our customers have consistently been spending more money with us, and we keep growing our headcount, and we keep growing our people, promoting them in the organization. It tells me that the communication has worked as well as it could have worked.
From your perspective, Misty, I mean, you're an organization of 100,000 employees. For those that are kind of hybrid, how has communications worked or not worked?
Yeah, Fanny, I think one of the things that we have really encouraged our leaders is to hold those like one-on-one team meetings with their individual team members, right? We often in the past would hold, team meetings when we were in the office, but we found it really effective for our leaders to have those, and we encourage them to do it almost weekly, if possible, to have those one-on-ones, just to stay connected and make sure that everyone knew what was going on. The other thing I would say from a communications perspective is repeat the communication. It's not a one and done communication, especially when to your point, you're going out to a large audience, is to repeat that and sometimes to allow team members to process. For the first time that something is communicated, especially a change in the environment that we've been in and has changed so much, is to communicate and then communicate again.
Yeah,
so,
repetition.
Yes, exactly.
Those of you in the audience, drop in the comments what has worked or not worked that you've seen in your organizations when it comes to communications. Please share that with each other. Andrew, what have you seen work or not work when it comes to communications?
Well, I was going to go to one of the things Sarjeet said. He said one of the C's was connect. And at first you say connect, like in technically connect, make sure. But the other is connect with your coworkers, right? So there's a connect squared. And so I was thinking about that during the pandemic, the early stages. Everybody had the virtual happy hours and things like that. That was it. Now, if you're going to maintain a hybrid workforce or a remote workforce, is to take those events and make them cultural, like ongoing things. Like instead of just having a one-time event, have a book club. And so it has a life ongoing. And so in those groups to get together and stay together and continue to do that. One of the success things that we've been able to do in the virtual world is have prop points. And everybody gets points to prop them up. And the way it does, you can do it by small teams or whatever, but we take a team, and at the end of every week, people will get 20 points. And they can say, I'm going to give my 20 points to Misty. And she did a great job helping me with this issue. I gave my 20 points to someone else. And then we have one person total them all up. And then on Mondays, we spin a virtual wheel. And whoever got the most prop points gets a prize, whether it be a gift card or an item on the wheel. And that's gone really well. Yeah. It gets the team working together. It gets people the things that you'd normally do in an office, the thank yous, it gets them out there. And it's been well received in a good program.
I love that. Acknowledging, connecting, and celebrating all in one. I love that. Moving on to the next one, when it comes to training and mentoring, how are you doing that in a hybrid kind of workplace environment, Sarjeet?
Yeah, so obviously in the early stages of COVID, we had to do that mostly remotely. So we took our mentoring program completely offline, not offline, it's basically remote.
Yeah.
And we have virtual tea or coffee sessions our mentors had with their mentees. But lately, last 6 months or so, we have started several in-person training sessions. So we made a commitment to ourselves 3 months ago that every Friday, one Friday of a month, half a day, we're going to stop doing billable work, and we're going to come in person, and we're going to pick topics that is most important to our customers and our colleagues, and we're going to do 2 or 3 training sessions in the afternoon. And then, of course, there is alcohol involved after that. but Friday,
And you involve both employees as well as clients?
Well, we have not gone yet to the client, but our intention to draw our clients into those training programs.
Awesome. Yeah, we saw some of those lecture series on the videos that we just played, right?
That's correct.
Got
That's
it.
correct.
And is there an option for those that can only join remotely to watch it remotely?
Well, deliberately, I'm trying to encourage us to get out of our comfort zone and show up, because I'm a big believer in people can work anywhere, but 100% remote is going to be suboptimal for individual as well as team or a company performance. So I've deliberately kept it in person. And the other reason is, connectivity in a, multi-environment still steals the thunder of, So we have so far done doing it in person only, but we have plans to go, take these sessions to our smaller offices like Albuquerque and Little Rock and Houston as well.
Got it. Like a road show.
Yep.
Very nice. Misty, has things changed in terms of training and mentoring and career development now that we're kind of hybrid / in-person for American?
It has in some respects, Fanny. I mean, obviously with our frontline team members, they still do need to come in-person training. For instance, flight attendant training, that's very difficult to do online, right?
For sure.
So, or a
Yes.
pilot, you don't want to have that remote. So, but for our management and leadership staff, for sure, yeah, we've definitely gone to more online training related versus in person. And actually, some of the training for our frontline team members has also been remote. So, the Welcome to American training that we do, just so that we make sure that we include all of our stakeholders in that training. So, we wanted to make sure that folks still had the opportunity to hear from different groups within the organization, especially for those new team members. So I would say, again, it's a little bit of a hybrid, right? So as we look at, and I'm sure that will continue to evolve over the coming months as well. So.
Andrew, they're loving your book club idea in the comments, so thank you for that.
Sure.
What are you seeing in terms of that training, mentoring, and even especially younger candidates? How is that being treated?
Well, a couple of things. One, on the training topic, what we're doing going forward, not today, but our plan going forward is everything we do in training will also video. So there'll be an option for the people that weren't able to get there, or that maybe that were in the remote environment. So duplicate training with that. The other thing, and Sarjeet referred to that, is that we have in-person events where you have to come in person if you can. So if everyone, that you can't hide from the remote, because some people, you don't want them to be hermits, right? So I agree with that. And the add-on, what we try to do is those that are remote, totally remote, maybe in a different city, that can't make those events, we encourage all the remote workers to have a separate event. We give them a budget, and so if we have a happy hour in person where everybody local is supposed to be there, those that are remote can have a Grubhub, and we give them so they can have food delivered, and they have a virtual event, so that they still feel part of the group, even though they can't be there. And then our plan is to have twice a year, everybody is in person, remote, no matter where they are, bring them in to Dallas, so that we do at least get some face time, because I agree, you've got to have some face time.
Absolutely. anything different or extra that you need to do for some of your younger recruiters, people that might need extra hand-holding or
I just got to be
mentoring?
careful with how I say this. My personal view is that the workforce sub 30 years old, maybe this job is in their first couple out of school or entering the workforce, they tend to like and need more time in the office. They like the collaboration more than the older workforce. I can be careful I say that, but it's just what I've seen. And so that was one of the reasons that we got the office space, because we went too far with the pendulum and said everybody's remote. And then the people that said, hey, I want to come on. And so we were going to lose people, just the opposite. I'm sitting there saying, hey, you've got to give remote, or you're going to lose people. Well, if you're totally remote, you're going to lose people if you don't have some place for them to collaborate as well. So there's the arrow needs to be right in the middle, I'll say.
Yeah, and listening, right?
Yes.
Listening to what people want.
Yeah, and that's another thing we do, is a lot of assessments so that people can get a chance to get a voice. Anonymous, use SurveyMonkey, something easy like that, just so people can respond, tell you what they want.
Sarajit or Misty, anything extra you're doing for some of your younger employees? Or maybe Sarajit first.
Yeah, so we do hire quite a few bright young kids, technical computer science or information systems kid from college. And last couple of years we realized that they have they face a unique challenge. Previously when they would be hired, they are surrounded by a lot of experienced people around all levels. They could go have a water cooler conversation with somebody not on their project. But they miss that opportunity to interact. And because to me, when I look back 30 years ago, that was a big part of my development. So one of the things my team has been very good in doing is they're pretty much taking it upon themselves, some of the experienced leaders in the company, that they would make sure they show up and they spend time with the younger generation. That was not planned, or that was not by policy, but the leaders in my team has taken the high road, and they show up and make sure that these young, hungry professionals have adequate human interaction.
Right. Absolutely. What about for you at American, for your entry-level, junior kind of employees? Anything extra that's needed?
I don't know that I would say it's extra, Fanny, but one of the things that we have continued to promote through the pandemic is what we call our employee resource groups. And there's 20 plus of those throughout the organization. And we find it very beneficial, especially for any new team member, to be able to identify with one of those resource groups. That's a sense of belonging. It's a community for them. Which oftentimes, if they're not a part of, then, in a big organization, sometimes it gets lost, right? So that's something that we've continued to promote, both online and in-person events, really throughout the pandemic. So it's something that we've found very beneficial.
Love that. Employee resource groups. And again, drop into the comments, share with everyone your experiences, what worked, what didn't work when it comes to that training and mentoring people. Andrew, I'd like to kind of ask you, so moving on to, we've hired, we're trying to nurture and create that kind of training and mentoring environment. Now, how do you retain employees? How do you keep them, and how do you ensure that they're not kind of lost in the digital space and hybrid world when it comes to retention?
Okay, I'll get to retention. On training, I want to mention one of the things that what you train is important too. And one of the things that we just did one today, is on time management. So that people, because when they're working outside of office environment, you need to help people understand the things that make you better time management, because you can get sidetracked. As far as retention goes, I think that centers around culture and make sure that people feel connected again, Sarajit, but part of the group. Assessments, get to know how people feel, and ask them to rate themselves. Just what are your 1 through 10? What do you feel about what you your position in the company? Do you like it? Are you happy with your? And people will tell you if they're happy or not. And then if they don't give a high enough percentage, pull them aside and talk and see what can we do to help you get where that number can be higher, more. I think those are the things I can think about on retention.
Got it. Assessments. Sarjeet, from your perspective, any initiatives that have worked or not worked when it comes to kind of retaining employees and maintaining that culture of CG Infinity?
Yeah, I think their retention and culture, they have a very strong correlation.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, as Andrew would attest to this, that last 2.5 years, I mean, the attrition rate in our industry is very high. And so, as employer, we had to work extra hard to make sure we retain people. And, there are some ways I see people, they're paying, employers are paying more, and the way we try to approach retention is through our culture. Like, there are every employee, if we are transparent and tell them that, hey, we're not going to be the highest paid employer, but here is what else you are getting here and you will be missing if you go to the highest paid. The economy is not going to be like the way it has been for tech workers, like for the last 30 months. It's not going to be the same. So, just expanding on your culture and being very authentic, I've seen that it works very well for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not an employee of CG Infinity, but even your tagline of people first, driven to transform, I really do see that your employees kind of live it and breathe it. Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's your culture. Yeah. So attrition rate can be high in the technology industry. What is kind of attrition in the airline industry, Misty?
In the past, it's typically been very low attrition, and that really stems from most of our team members are covered under a collective bargaining agreement, right? And so everything is very seniority based. So, but I will say, through the pandemic, as everybody has experienced, our attrition rate has increased. And so I think one of the things that we've tried to do is educate our team members and communicate again about the value proposition that we have, right? I think sometimes that gets lost in the background, and so folks forget about some of the offerings that we do have and some of the benefits and perks and privileges that come along with working for a large corporation and be an airline. And so we've tried to do a better job at making sure our team members understand the value of the company that they're actually working for.
Any specific initiatives that you put in place around maintaining culture for those that are now kind of partly hybrid?
Right, just staying connected. I think it all kind of goes back to that, right? So yes, communications and making sure that folks have someone that they can rely on as well, whether it is their immediate manager, or maybe it's through a mentorship or an employee business group, some sense of belonging, right? Because I think that's what often does get lost in the remote workforce.
And also a career path, right?
Exactly,
A well-defined career path so that they know that where they can go within and stay within the company. They don't have to leave to go somewhere else. And you all define that really well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Some of the suggestions we're getting in the comments, Sheila, one of the ways to promote better training and retention in hybrid situations or remote is having those smaller breakout groups in Zoom, Microsoft Teams. So true. So it's not so overwhelming with a big group. You kind of break out into smaller groups. Thank you for that, Sheila. As we kind of wrap up the show, I'd love to kind of get maybe a final piece of advice or sharing around the table here, around the couch here. Andrew, anything that you'd like to say just in general around career development in the hybrid workplace?
I wish you'd picked on me third.
No,
I think I'll go. It's a moving target, and we don't have all the answers. And I think that's it. I think that making people feel connected, as we discussed, asking them what they want, understanding them, making sure people know they're heard is real important. Having good policies, work on retention, it's a full-time job. Having the right mix of in-person versus virtual meetings. And also having, as you mentioned, team meetings at different levels so that they can get together and work together. You want the people to feel sticky. You want them as part of the company. But it's a moving target, and we're just constantly trying to. We have meetings, and again, have someone from an advocate for the remote culture in those meetings so that they have an opportunity to voice their concern. If you have meetings where it's just all the people in the headquarters in the office, that just want everybody in there to see their eyeballs, it's not going to work. Right. You've got to have that advocate in the room for the remote workforce.
And then listening, and
Yes.
then mixing it up. Yes. Sarojit, your perspective?
Yeah, just picking up what Andrew just said, just creating an environment where we all know every business, whether it is American Airlines for Misty or Bravo Tech for Andrew or CG Infinity for me, we have to be constantly innovative. And our employees, they're going to drive a lot of innovation. So how do we create that environment in a hybrid environment so that we drive the innovation? Innovations are often not evolution, but it's more accidents. How do we create that is a big opportunity for me as an employer to really figure out. And
Absolutely.
probably work in progress at best right now.
Yeah, and I saw a comment in the audience as well, like driving innovation and then creativity.
Yeah.
Something that just
Exactly.
sometimes needs that kind of organic conversations to
Absolutely.
spur that, right? Yeah. And Misty, from your perspective, any final words?
Yeah, I just would add on to that flexibility, right? I mean, 2.5 years ago, whoever guessed we would be where we are today, right? So just
Yeah.
being flexible and adaptable through that process. We've all learned a lot, I think, and we'll continue to learn as we go forward. So I think we just have to keep that in mind. What it is today, it's not going to be what it is tomorrow. So
Yeah. Flexibility, listening, adaptability, driving innovation, driving creativity. This kind of wraps up our show with their final words here. But I did want to kind of thank all of you, Sarojit, Misty, and Andrew, for all your amazing perspectives and insights and different points of view. And also to thank you in the audience. This is our last episode of 2022 for the CG Hour. We so appreciate you in the audience, your perspectives, your comments, your addition to the topics that we discuss. And I want to kind of sum up in this next video some of our past episodes. This wraps up our 8th episode. So make sure you kind of go back and watch them. So here is a summary of all our past episodes for the CG Hour. So you can see we had a whole slew of amazing topics. So you'll want to go back and watch anything that you missed and offer your perspectives as well. You can find all of them on YouTube at the CG Infinity Inc. channel. So thank you everybody in the audience. Thank you to our amazing panel. We wrap up this year and wishing everybody an amazing holiday season. And we'll finish with this tagline, people first, driven to transform. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone on the panel. We'll see you next year.